She thought she could have a black man removed from first class with just a few carefully chosen words, until he calmly reached into his pocket and flashed his FBI badge. Elaine Whitaker glided through Seattle-Tacoma International Airport, her sleek designer suitcase trailing effortlessly behind her. She had taken this flight route countless times before. Seattle to Chicago, first class, the only way she ever traveled. Everything about air travel felt routine to her. The priority boarding, the complimentary sparkling wine, the murmured conversations among executives. She expected luxury and exclusivity, so when she approached her row and saw a black man in a sharp charcoal suit already seated beside her, her stride hesitated. He exuded quiet authority, his laptop open, eyes fixed on the screen as if analyzing something critical. Elaine's lips tightened. She placed her leather handbag down with a touch too much force and settled into her seat, barely concealing her irritation. First class wasn't supposed to feel like this. The man beside her, Marcus Hayes, barely registered her presence. He was engrossed, typing fluidly, absorbed in his work. The laptop's glow illuminated his face, accentuating his composed features. He carried the ease of someone who belonged. Elaine, however, wasn't convinced. She exhaled sharply, shifting in her seat. Her purse accidentally bumped his armrest. No response. She straightened, glancing around as if expecting a flight attendant to notice this error. Then she took it further. Leaning slightly toward him, she spoke, her voice deliberately courteous. "Excuse me," she said, "are you sure you're in the right seat?" Marcus didn't look up. "Yes." That was it. No elaboration, no justification. She cleared her throat, scanning the cabin again. This time she caught the eye of a flight attendant, Sarah Collins, a woman in her late 20s assisting passengers nearby. Elaine raised her hand subtly, signaling Sarah over. Marcus sighed, almost imperceptibly. Sarah approached with a professional smile. "Is everything all right, ma'am?" Elaine forced a small laugh, shaking her head as if amused. "I think there's been a mix-up. I believe this gentleman is in the wrong seat." Sarah glanced at Marcus, who paused his typing and looked up, his face unreadable but his eyes sharp. Not surprised, not confused, something else. Sarah pulled up the passenger manifest on her tablet, scanning it quickly. "Actually, Mr. Hayes is in his correct seat," she said politely. "Your ticket is for 2A and he's in 2B. Elaine blinked, her grip tightening on her armrest. "That's odd," she said, forcing another laugh. "Are you sure?" "I just assumed." Sarah smiled, sensing the direction this was heading. "I'm sure, ma'am. Everything checks out." Elaine's expression flickered for a split second before she forced a tight smile. "Well," she exhaled, "I suppose mistakes happen." She turned toward the window, but she wasn't done. Not even close. Marcus, meanwhile, resumed his work. Sarah lingered for a moment, sensing the tension, then nodded to Marcus before stepping away. Elaine was seething. Her fingers tapped her knee, her breath shallow, eyes darting toward the flight crew, then back to Marcus. He wasn't reacting, wasn't explaining himself, wasn't playing the role she expected. That fueled her anger. She wasn't the type to let things go. Elaine sat rigidly, arms crossed, her mind racing. This wasn't right. She had flown first class for years and never had she faced a situation like this. The man beside her wasn't doing anything wrong, but to her that didn't matter. He didn't belong. Her breath quickened, irritation simmering just below the surface. She couldn't just accept this. She pressed the call button. A soft chime sounded, and Sarah reappeared moments later, her smile unchanged. "Ma'am, is there something I can help you with?" Elaine kept her voice low, measured. "I'd like to request a seat change." Sarah blinked. "Oh, are you uncomfortable? Is there an issue with the seat itself?" Elaine paused for a half second. She couldn't say what she was really thinking. Instead, she tilted her head toward Marcus, lowering her voice further. I don't feel comfortable sitting here," she said, her words slow, deliberate. Sarah's smile wavered. "I'm sorry to hear that, ma'am. If there's a technical issue with the seat, I'd be happy to—" "It's not the seat," Elaine cut in. She exhaled sharply. "I just prefer to sit elsewhere." Sarah glanced at Marcus, who had paused his typing again but said nothing, his fingers hovering over the keyboard, jaw tight. "Let me check if there are any open seats," Sarah said, tapping her tablet. "Just a moment." Elaine sat back, lips pressed into a firm line. Marcus didn't react, didn't argue, didn't ask why she was uncomfortable. That infuriated her more. A few rows ahead, a woman in a blazer glanced back, pretending to adjust her glasses but clearly listening. Across the aisle, a man nudged his partner. People were noticing. Sarah's fingers moved quickly over the screen. "I'm afraid we're at full capacity today, ma'am. There aren't any open first-class seats available." Elaine's stomach tightened. Sarah smiled apologetically. "Would you like me to check in economy? There might be a seat there." Elaine's face burned. "Economy?" As if she would ever— "That's not going to work," she said, her voice catching. Sarah's smile held. "In that case, I hope you don't mind staying in your assigned seat." Elaine forced a thin smile. "I suppose I have no choice." Sarah nodded. "Let me know if you need anything else." She walked away, but Elaine barely noticed, her ears ringing. Marcus, still silent, resumed typing. That was it, his response. He was ignoring her, pretending she didn't exist. Her fingers curled into fists. This wasn't over. She exhaled sharply and pressed the call button again. Sarah hesitated before returning. "Ma'am?" Elaine sat up straighter. "I need to speak to someone in charge." Sarah's face remained neutral. "I'm the lead flight attendant on this flight. Is there something I can clarify for you?" Elaine's voice sharpened. "I need to speak to the head crew member or the pilot." A murmur spread through the cabin. Someone chuckled quietly. Sarah's patience was visibly thinning, but her tone stayed professional. "Ma'am, the pilot is preparing for takeoff and won't be available, but I'm happy to assist you." Elaine pursed her lips, her jaw tight. Marcus wasn't reacting, wasn't nervous, wasn't shifting uncomfortably. It was like he'd done this before. She lowered her voice again. "I don't feel safe." That changed everything. Sarah's smile dropped, her body stiffened. Marcus stopped typing. Across the aisle, a man in a suit muttered, "Here we go again." Sarah straightened. "I'm sorry, ma'am, but can you clarify what you mean?" Elaine folded her hands neatly, tilting her head slightly. "I just don't feel comfortable. She paused, implying something without saying it. "I don't want to be difficult, but I think it would be best if someone else took this seat." Marcus closed his laptop. For the first time, he looked her directly in the eye, and Elaine felt a flicker of doubt. But she wasn't backing down, not yet. A hush settled over the cabin, the weight of her words lingering. "I don't feel safe," carried power, designed to provoke a response. Sarah didn't move right away, her posture rigid, her eyes flicking to Marcus, who had closed his laptop, hands resting on it. He wasn't smiling or frowning, just watching Elaine, studying her. Elaine didn't flinch, not yet. Sarah exhaled slowly. "Ma'am," she said carefully, "are you saying you feel threatened?" Elaine tilted her head, giving a small shrug. "I'm not saying that. I just don't feel comfortable, that's all." Across the aisle, the man in the suit scoffed, muttering, "Unbelievable." A young man a few rows back lifted his phone, pretending to scroll but clearly recording. Whispers spread, heads turning. Elaine sensed the shift, the tide turning against her, but she pressed on, feigning politeness. "This is a simple request. If I'm uncomfortable, I should have the right to move seats, shouldn't I?" Sarah's jaw tightened. "Ma'am, I already checked, and there are no open first-class seats available." Elaine pressed her lips together. "And coach?" Sarah hesitated. "There are 2 open seats in economy." Elaine straightened. "Perfect. He can take one of them." A ripple of murmurs spread. Marcus inhaled deeply, his fingers drumming once on his laptop before going still. He wasn't arguing, wasn't moving. Sarah blinked as if ensuring she'd heard correctly. Ma'am, her voice firmer now, just to clarify, you want me to move this passenger to economy because you don't want to sit next to him? Elaine nodded once, sitting taller. Yes. Sarah inhaled through her nose. That won't be happening. Elaine's eyes snapped up. Excuse me? Sarah folded her hands, voice steady. Mr. Hayes has a first-class ticket, just like you. He is in his assigned seat. I cannot and will not ask him to move. Elaine's face flushed. She was losing control. Passengers were staring openly now, some whispering, some shaking their heads. The young man with the phone was still recording. Elaine's stomach twisted. This is ridiculous, she hissed. I'm simply asking for the same courtesy anyone else would get if they felt uncomfortable. Sarah didn't budge. You are asking me to remove a paying passenger from his assigned first-class seat and relocate him to economy for no valid reason. That is not an accommodation. That is discrimination. A sharp silence followed. Someone let out a low whistle. Marcus hadn't spoken, hadn't moved, just watched, waiting. Elaine's pulse pounded. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. Sarah squared her shoulders. Ma'am, we are about to taxi. If you cannot remain seated and follow flight crew instructions, I will have to ask you to deplane. Elaine's stomach dropped. What? Sarah's tone was firm but professional. You have two options. Stay in your seat quietly, or you can deplane. But Mr. Hayes is not moving. A few passengers clapped softly. Elaine felt humiliation surge. She wasn't supposed to be the one reprimanded. She opened her mouth to argue, but before she could, Marcus reached into his pocket. He pulled out a leather case, flipped it open, and held it up. And just like that, everything changed. A gold FBI badge gleamed under the cabin lights. The air shifted. Elaine's body went rigid. Passengers gasped, some chuckling. The young man recording zoomed in. Marcus's voice was calm, unreadable. Ma'am, he said, tilting his head, would you like to file an official complaint? I can take your statement right now. Elaine's breath caught. She couldn't speak. Marcus didn't move, didn't blink, just waited. For the first time, Elaine felt truly cornered. But Elaine isn't just embarrassed. She's about to face real consequences. The silence in the cabin was heavy, Marcus's FBI badge glinting unmistakably. Passengers who had been whispering were now staring openly, some smirking, others wide-eyed. Elaine's mouth went dry, her mind scrambling for an out. This wasn't supposed to happen. The man she'd implied was a threat was federal law enforcement. Her throat tightened. Marcus's expression remained steady. Would you like to file an official complaint, Mom? The words were a trap. Elaine's body felt frozen, heat creeping up her neck. She tried to speak, but only a faint, I escaped. Marcus tilted his head slightly. You said you felt uncomfortable, he continued, tone polite but cutting. That's a serious allegation on a federal flight. If you believe I've done something inappropriate, I'd be happy to take your statement. Elaine's stomach plummeted. She could feel the shift. Moments ago, she thought she had control, expected sympathy, expected someone to take her side. Now she was the one under scrutiny. A woman 2 rows ahead chuckled, muttering, "This is gold." The young man recording zoomed in on Elaine's face. Sarah stood nearby, arms crossed, her expression neutral but expectant. Everyone was waiting. Elaine's breath was shallow. She couldn't admit she'd lied, couldn't say she'd made it up to get rid of him. But if she doubled down, she'd be accusing an FBI agent of being a danger on a flight, and that came with consequences. Her hands trembled. Finally, after an agonizing pause, she shook her head slightly. No, she whispered. No complaint. Marcus nodded once as if he'd expected that. He closed his badge, tucked it back into his jacket, and reopened his laptop. Just like that, it was over, for him. For Elaine, the nightmare was just beginning. Passengers murmured approval, some clapping softly. The woman across the aisle smirked and returned to her book. The young man with the phone was already typing. Elaine's heart pounded. She wanted to vanish, to undo the last 10 minutes, but there was no undoing this. She had humiliated herself publicly, and people had seen it, recorded it. Her eyes darted around, searching for a sympathetic glance. No one offered one. Even Sarah, who had been patient, now lacked warmth in her expression. Elaine swallowed hard. She wanted to argue, to regain control, but she knew there was nothing left to say. The flight hadn't even taken off, and she had already lost. But Elaine isn't just embarrassed. She's about to face real consequences. Elaine sat stiffly, staring ahead, her face burning. This wasn't just embarrassment, it was humiliation. Marcus had moved on, typing calmly on his laptop as if she didn't exist. The cabin, however, hadn't forgotten. The woman with the phone smirked at her screen, tapping twice. Elaine's stomach clenched. She knew that look. Her own nieces shared it when posting something online, something meant to spread fast. Her fingers tightened on the armrest. She stole a glance at the woman's screen. The video was already uploaded. Elaine felt the air leave her lungs. The caption read, "Entitled woman tries to remove black man from first class, then learns he's FBI." Her hands went cold. The flight wasn't even airborne, and her world was unraveling. She turned forward, trying to steady her breathing, convincing herself it wouldn't be so bad, that it wouldn't spread. Her phone vibrated in her purse. Once, twice, a third time. Her chest tightened. She didn't want to look, but her hands moved instinctively, pulling out the device. Text messages from colleagues, friends, even distant relatives. "Elaine, is this you? Saw a video? Tell me it's not real. What did you do?" Her heartbeat roared. She swiped open her browser and tapped on X. It took less than a second. Her name was trending. The video uploaded minutes ago had over 25,000 views. Comments poured in. "Karma's brutal. She really thought she'd get away with it. Hope she enjoys the internet dragging her." Elaine's vision blurred. Her world wasn't just collapsing, it was imploding. For the first time, she realized there was no coming back from this. But what happens after the flight lands is beyond Elaine's worst fears. She gripped her phone, knuckles white, the cabin noise fading behind her racing pulse. She could barely breathe. The video's view count climbed, 40,000, 55,000, 80,000. It wasn't slowing down. She swiped through comments. Imagine being this entitled LOL. The FBI reveal was chef's kiss. Name her. We need to know who she is. Her chest tightened. She glanced around, but no one was looking at her anymore. They didn't need to. They'd seen enough. Elaine shifted, her body rigid. Marcus hadn't moved, his fingers tapping lightly on his laptop. If he knew about the video, he didn't show it. He didn't care. That made it worse. Her phone buzzed again. She flinched, seeing her brother's name. She declined the call with a trembling finger. She wasn't ready for that conversation, or any of this. The plane hadn't even taken off, and her world was collapsing. She exhaled sharply, trying to stay calm. She needed a plan. To apologize, maybe? No, that would only fuel the fire. Ignore it. That was worse. Her thoughts spiraled. Then the pilot's voice crackled over the intercom. "Ladies and gentlemen, we are beginning our descent into Chicago O'Hare. The local time is 6:12 p.m. Please ensure your seatbelts are fastened as we prepare for landing." Elaine's heart sank. Landing. She'd been so consumed by the chaos that she hadn't considered what awaited outside. She refreshed the video one last time. 120,000 views. Her name was trending. Her hands shook as she shoved her phone into her bag, telling herself she could get ahead of this, that it wouldn't be as bad as she feared, but Elaine still hopes the storm will pass until she turns on the news. She bolted off the plane the moment the doors opened, ignoring the side glances, the quiet chuckles, the unspoken judgment. She just needed to escape. But as she hurried into O'Hare Airport, her pulse skipped. Near baggage claim, a small group of reporters waited. Not a mob, not yet, but enough. A man in a gray suit held a microphone, reading from his phone as a cameraman filmed. The now viral video shows an unidentified woman attempting to have an FBI agent removed from first class, citing discomfort. The clip has gained over 1.2 million views in just hours. Elaine stopped breathing. 1.2 million? Impossible. She turned her head, praying they hadn't seen her, but one reporter locked eyes with her. Wait, that's her! Elaine spun, panic surging. She couldn't be seen like this. Her heels clicked against the floor as she hurried toward the exit. Her phone buzzed relentlessly. Texts, calls, alerts. She couldn't outrun it. She shoved past travelers, her breath short, hands clammy, barely reaching the curb before her name was shouted. Ms. Whitaker, do you have a response to the video? She winced. Her name was out. A taxi pulled up and she threw herself into the back seat. Go, she snapped. Now. The driver raised an eyebrow but drove off without a word. Elaine pressed her hands to her temples, eyes shut. 1.2 million views. Her stomach churned. She had built her life on reputation, a respected name, a polished image. In one afternoon, it was gone. Her phone buzzed again, an unknown number. She stared, heart pounding, then answered just before it went to voicemail. Hello? A brief silence, then a curt voice. Ms. Whitaker, this is David Keller, chair of the Horizon Alliance. I assume you're aware of the situation. Elaine's mouth went dry. She'd served on the Horizon Alliance board for years, a nonprofit championing diversity and ethics. She knew what this was. David, we're going to need you to step down, he cut in. Elaine froze. It wasn't a request. It was final. But this is being taken out of context. The board disagrees, he said, voice flat. We'll issue a statement by morning. We expect your resignation by then. A beep. He hung up. Elaine lowered the phone, her career over, her reputation shattered. No one cared about her side, they'd seen the video, and that was enough. She let out a shaky breath. This wasn't something she could control. This was something she'd done to herself, and now she had to live with it. Meanwhile, Marcus Hayes hadn't given her another thought. By now, he was likely in a meeting, unbothered, his life untouched. For him, this was just another Thursday. If this story made you think, don't forget to subscribe for more gripping real-life scenarios.